Hello and welcome to the LiveOps Lounge, where we talk about all the aspects of live operated games, from free to play to monetization design, whether or not the game's actually being run live or not. I'm delighted that I'm being joined by Ivan from Kabam. Ivan, tell us about yourself and what you do.
Hello, I'm Ivan Donik. I'm a Monetization Lead at Kabam. I've been in the video game industry since, 2008, 2007. I did a lot of different things. I started in QA. I did a little bit of design. I did a little bit of production. I did a little bit of sound design as well. And then in 2013...
I'm jealous. I wish I knew about sound design. I just have no idea.
Oh, I absolutely love it. But yeah, in 2013, I joined Kabam. And a year later, I joined their LiveOps team and has been there ever since, kind of gravitating towards monetization. Did a lot of things like offer planning, forecasting, monetization design. And yeah, right now I'm running the monetization team, working on features, setting up monetization strategy. A lot of basically all things monetization related for our game Contest of Champions.
Exactly. The thing about this is obviously Contest of Champions has been such a kind of magnificent kind of hit, very much loved, and a lot of people, when they hear the term monetization, not us in the industry, but a lot of people, a lot of consumers out there think monetization means evil, and it's not. It's just the nature of having a commercial experience. Let's kick off with some sort of basics. So you've talked about your journey coming in, doing I wouldn't say classic route, but that QA and sound and those other things, and then ending up in the live scene. Now, for me, I think this is a fundamental gear shift that's happened in the industry. And I wrote a book on the subject about 10 years ago, how games as a service has become important. But I think it's become pivotal in a way of thinking about games. When you switched into that mode, what did that mean to you? How did that change the way you looked at games?
That's first of all, that's a very interesting question, because prior to that, I worked primarily on premium games, single player games, multiplayer games. And this was kind of like my early introduction into free-to-play mobile games. And switching to LiveOps definitely opened a lot of insights on the facts, like launching a game is just the first step. Before that, you have your $60 game, you launch it, you pray it does well, you update it.
Yay,
but
it's out there.
I know,
Next thing.
Yeah, with live free-to-play games or games as a service, launching is just the first step. Then the actual a real work starts. It did open a lot of insights on how community works, how players go through your game, what they want, their behavior, their habits. What do you need to do to keep players happy and just to have this awesome relationship with them in order to support your game. So making players happy means your game is doing well. Yeah, it was very interesting.
Well, again, I think for me, this is a transition where you go from, I actually don't think it's limited to a classical live service model. I think for me, it's a case of we're moving from the focus being the game to the focus being the community.
Yes.
And to my mind, that's a really profoundly different way of looking at playing experiences, because satisfying a player in a beginning, middle, and end of an experience, that's an interesting challenge. But you don't have the same scope to just throw your own ideas at things. I don't know. That's not quite true. Hopefully, you'll get where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
There's something where you have a expectation set upon you by an external audience, because it's not your game anymore.
Exactly.
It's their game.
Exactly. That's a very well put. Yeah. You no longer exist sort of in a vacuum, outside of outside of the community, you work directly with them, and maybe not even just working directly, but you act based on how your community responds to your game. So it's a constant feedback of, you do something in the game, audience likes it or doesn't like it, then you go from there, over and then over and over.
And I think there is still this massive challenge, which is very similar in both I don't like the I personally don't know the word premium for pay up front games. That's because I'm a classically trained marketeer, and for me, premium has an actual definition. But this idea of a pay up front game and an at launch live game has the same fundamental hurdle: find our audience, find our tribe, and getting to scale. And I think I think those things are very, very in parallel. What I think is really interesting, though, is I actually think that live service requirements and demands that we have, in other words, how do we keep satisfying that audience? How do we keep delivering that audience? Actually also has parallels, maybe not with a single game, the pay up front game, but I think it also has parallels with a portfolio. So if you're a publisher or if you're a game studio with multiple self-published titles, I think you still have the same challenges, which for me is, how do you set expectations? How do you deliver on them? How do you keep players caring about what you're doing?
Exactly. Yeah. You definitely want to ensure that your game is growing, not just naturally because you set up a plan, a year before the release, you have your roadmap. You need to ensure that the steps you take, anything from first time experience to the mid game to the end game, because let's face it, end game is a problem for a lot of live service games, because once you reach the top, what do? Do you stop playing, or do you have to other systems or modes that actually allow players to enjoy your game after they beat the game? So yeah, identifying things at different points of the life cycle of the player, and making sure that those things that you set to do are going on track. Again, working with community, looking at their feedback, looking at the data. That's the heart and soul of successful live games.
And I think one of the things is that in that process, I mean, I'd love to know a bit more. I mean, I'm just going to say out my table, I'd love to hear what because obviously, with Conquest, it's such a kind of like juggernaut. It has with it such brands, such, I imagine, IP requirements that constrain you in various ways. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, constraint is the mother of invention in many ways. And there's a whole bunch of things. But in my head, a kind of classical live team is going to be thinking about, what's the cadence of update that I need to do? Yeah. What kinds of things can we deliver efficiently that we can sustain on an ongoing basis? So that might be, I might do a functional update once every 3 months or something, or it might be doing an event takeover, or I might have a set of missions and challenges which are weaved into a narrative arc. To my mind, it's the team has to work out what that looks like for them. So there'll be a functional delivery, there'll be a store element, there'll be a community experience element, but there might be other things around the wider marketing and communication side as well, all of which have to be worked in a kind of contingent plan. Does that
definitely
match your...
Yes, absolutely, because you need to work like your design team, your live game support team. Like, you do need to figure out the cadence of the short term changes and the long term changes, because players, there's different kinds of players. Some play 1 hour a week, some play 5 hours a day, and ensuring that every group of players is getting what they can out of your game and being satisfied is a priority. And exactly, you're right. There is a connection between the design, the community team, the marketing team. How you present it, how you communicate your changes. Working together is definitely a key part of this, because this is how you build trust with your players, and this is how you basically ensure that you make players know that, hey, we're here for a long haul and we want to make sure that you're happy. And if you're happy, we can continue do what we like and then be happy together, if that makes sense.
No, totally. And what's in my head is that I think it's interesting to talk about the player's needs. And then in my head, like you say, the person who plays 5 hours a day, one of them might be playing 4 or 5 hours. Very few people on a mobile will do that, but some people seem to find somehow.
I mean, you would be surprised, but...
Oh, yeah. But more often than not, it might be I'll be playing 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there, 20 minutes there, and it's their kind of like me time. It's their, I'm taking a couple of moments out for myself. And I think this is what's interesting to me is how much that resonates, whether it's a more actiony kind of game like a or a Candy Crush or a those kind of other games, more meditative experiences. And I think what I think this highlights to me is that as humans, we have things we want to connect with. And I think particularly in the Marvel world, I mean, maybe I'm an old school comic boy back in the day, although more 2000 AD than Marvel, although I was a bit of a Spidey fan and Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
But they're the ones I want to play. I want to play, Doctor Strange. That's, Re-Rich, whatever it might be. And there'll be some people like me who have the things that they connect with on an emotional level.
Yeah.
Whether it's movie-based or prior to the movie.
Yes.
Or movies. And there'll be other people who are more collecting-based.
Yeah.
And other people who just don't really mind which one. They're just trying something new and fresh, and they want that sensation of new and variance. And others who want to just expertise out every nuance of the function of the game system. It doesn't really matter which character it is. How, with all these different types of players, how do you kind of like think about your planning process for what you're going to do next month? Because you've got so many different so many levers you can pull.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, especially right now, because our game is entering its, I think, 12th year or 11th. It's been a while. So obviously the game was launched back in 2014 was not the same. The game was launched in 2014. As you said, definitely tried to resonate with a lot of Marvel fans from kind of all walks of life, whether it's kind of, as you described, old school comic book readers, or sort of new fans that came from Marvel Cinematic Universe, which at the time was booming. So we definitely wanted to. We wanted to resonate with that brand, and no matter where you come from, Spider-Man, Avengers, Doctor Strange, all these big beats, and that's what was kind of the main priority. And then, of course, the second part was the core loop of the game. What kind of game is this? And as you mentioned, it is a collection game, and it is an action game. So there's definitely systems and parts that are kind of serve different purposes. And then, fast forward 10 or 11 years later, we have 350 plus ownable characters from all kinds of corners of Marvel Universe.
And you've got the tyranny of choice at that point.
Exactly.
Where there is more than you can handle in terms of what to pick.
Yeah. And at that point, you do have established base, and you have established, the main reasons why people keep coming back. Of course, characters, is important part. We work with Marvel. We try to represent the brand the best way we can. However, at this point, it all becomes about the systems that are in there. So you have to ensure that players are engaged. And when it comes to planning on a short term, at the very basic, we want to ensure that players are not bored, at least for the session that they're played. That there's always something to do. Sometimes there's too much to do. Again, it's a pretty old game, but at least when they come back, even for 20 minutes, for 30 minutes, you need to ensure that there's some kind of activities that will actually occupy their time. In the terms of the long-term planning, this there's a lot of, again, working with community, working with the data. You're trying to understand the player's behavior and where they want where they're spending the time and what they're craving. And then based on that, the long-term planning comes to what can we improve to make sure the players are still getting engaged, and also how can we make the game feel fresh? And that's when the new systems and the new modes planning comes along. So, like, for example, we had this mode called Battlegrounds, which is kind of the closest thing we have to live PvP, when basically players draw a set of champions and then they kind of pit against each other. That mode has been live for about 5 years. And when it came out, it was such a fresh take on, like, again, it's still fighting. It's still one-on-one fighting, but the difference in the system was so stark. Like, okay, this is a great mode. And 5 years later, we made improvements, and we added a lot more modes, but then we see that this year, this is going to be this new mode. We still want to engage in the core loop or get players engaged in a core loop, but making it fresh and making it fun on the long term. That's really what it's all about.
Well, it's the massive challenge. I mean, MMOs often have the contextual opportunity because they can have narrative sweeping arcs, they can have a thing. Although I think it's ironic in some ways, we still design these games like TV serials or movies. Whereas I think we should be thinking of them like soap operas. The reason I use that language is because having these smaller arcs that interlock allows it to be constant, fresh movement. And to my mind, storytelling is what we're doing, even if we're doing it in an abstract way. The new event has a set of missions, has a set of things that I can do. But in a game that's lasted more than 10 years, I've done a mission before. How many variations of missions could I have done? Why would you want to come back and do the next one? And yet we find that there is an audience that does love that.
That's a great point, and I'm glad that you brought up storytelling, because we do still want the storytelling to be the part of this journey. A couple of years ago, we kind of switched our content cadence. I mean, like sort of a long-term cadence in this seasonal form, which is like a 3-month period. We call them sagas, and they do have a narrative approach. They do have a common theme. They have a common goal. And then within this 3 months, there's a set of different activities throughout that sort of, they all have the same narrative approach. But they also are so varied that throughout three months, it feels fresh. And then the next saga has a completely different narrative. For example, like like one is all about X-Men, and then another one is all about Spider-Verse and an approach. We even did a set of our own characters, because like we do have a relationship with Marvel, and throughout they've kind of allowed us to create our own characters. And one season was all about the originals, that they are taking over the contest, and now you have to sort of defeat them sort of as a group. So I'm really glad that you brought the narrative approach, like tying it into this sort of common theme definitely helps. And it wasn't like, we've done this in the past, but this was more on sort of a monthly basis. And we realized that doing it on a monthly basis is it works, but it definitely constrains you. Exactly.
The Halloween event, the Easter event.
Exactly.
Works. It's not saying we're tired of it. You expect there to be a Halloween thing. But if that's all you've got.
Exactly.
So what you're making me think about is that, I mean, I think it's really fascinating, you're moving to these longer term arcs. Great. I'm imagining, though, how much is a kind of templated formula in behind the scenes, not from the customer experience point of view, because I know you're very good at making sure that it feels fresh. But I would imagine if you did everything ad hoc, everything kind of bespoke in every arc, the administrative, the production planning, the risks involved in doing that would be very complicated.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm imagining that there's some standard approaches, standard pools, but you're then applying the flavor of the layer the customer sees, not the way that you deliver it. Is that fair? Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's a good assessment. Just like you mentioned, when you do ad hoc things, it does become chaotic. You do run into the situations when sometimes you oversaturate your content, or you overwhelm your audience, and you gotta have this fine line between, having too much to do and have nothing to do. So yes, again, through the painstaking process of trial and error, we did figure out the cadence. it is in a form, in a way, templatized, but at the same time, we do try to mix it up. But the goal is to ensure that, yes, you do have something to do at all times, but you never feel overwhelmed, because for a lot of players, too much demand in activities, and I'm not talking about the revenue or offers, but even the activities, like too much demand at the same time, sometimes equals churn. And they voice their opinion, like, you know what, I can't keep up. And I feel like if I need to keep up with all of these events at the same time, I will never be able to sustain this. So you're right. Yeah. Like the sort of the structure plan of the release of the short-term content within the form of the long-term overarching saga is the key. And for us, 3 months works because it's, again, trial and error. It's we able to prepare for each saga like accordingly and structure that. Because yes, doing things ad hoc, again, it worked 10 years ago. It worked when we launched and we
did.
Well, I mean,
we pretended it did.
You're right. Maybe we pretended we were able to take a lot more risks with it because, again, and also like 10 years ago, industry was in a different place. Like LiveOps was just starting, and everyone's trying to figure out what to do.
Well, at that stage, the level of cost of acquisition was so much more predictable, so much more scalable.
Exactly.
It was so much easier. Yeah, there's so many ways. Well, you got me thinking about a few things because there's two areas in my head of where I'm going. So I'm talking about team burnout risk, which is kind of implicit in some of the kind of like ways of saying about being more ad hoc. But you also hit on something I also have a very deep fascination with, which is player burnout and finding that. And again, I don't think you do that, but I think the game is good at this. But there are some games which out there have managed to fall into a trap where they think that adding more things to get, and if you don't turn up for those things you miss out, has ended up burning out a lot of players and causing more harm than good. So it seems to me that in all this planning process, and it sounds also that you're looking further forward to 3 months, helps with this. Actually, I look at a like high level 12-month roadmap.
Oh yeah. We definitely it is not just 3 months. It is. It's way further. Yeah.
I know some teams, their feature updates are 2 years out. Yeah, I know. Yeah. But these are games that are complicated in deployment. The thing in my head, so how does the team, like, I mean, again, don't need to give me any specifics, but how should a team consider this balancing act between having enough to excite a user to want to come back and not so much that you burn the team out by the workload or that there's too much so you burn the player out with their workload of playing the game?
I think working with data helps because especially if you run several events and you look at your engagement metrics and you look at where players spend their time, that helps a lot. You have the mathematical proof that some things work in your game and some things don't, or at least they're not performing to the point that you want. And in order to sort of balance those metrics or, improve those metrics, you do need to look at the data. You need to, the situations when there's too much content, you look and then you'll probably see that, players are churning, players are not as engaged. Surprise, surprise, they don't spend as much. So looking at the data helps a lot. That will give you sort of like the view on how players spend their time. You can also, do the segmentation of different players to just kind of get the sense of how each part performs. Then you need to work with economy designers and the understanding of the game economy, because at the end of the day, your live game really leans on economy like heavily, because if it's steady and you want to ensure that it's steady, you need to put specific guardrails that you make sure that you don't mess this up. So working with economy designers, they will create the sort of the roadmap of where the economy should be 3 months, 6 months, 12 months from now.
Yeah.
And that will also help you to structure events and events cadence to support that economy. And then I think I think the part that I personally don't see a lot of other games, at least talking about it as much, is leaning on your community. Like you do have, at some point, you will have a group of the most engaged players that will voice their opinion. Like you will have content creators, you will have players that give you direct feedback and look at what they want, like look at what they're saying. And I know in a lot of spaces like forums and Reddits, there is a lot of noise because from what in my experience, players often voice concern when they're not happy versus when they are happy. Because if you're happy, you just keep playing. But you do need to take community feedback in consideration and see that, guys, or like if they'll say like, hey guys, there's just too much to do. I have a job, I have a family, and I feel if I don't engage in those, just like you said, like I'm not going to be able to sort of catch up.
Well, the way we measure it is they stop playing.
Exactly.
And that's terrifying.
Exactly. I do think, however, that when they stop playing, it's like a little bit too late. And I mean, it is what it is. But if they do voice concern in the meantime, like, hey, this is becoming a little bit problematic. And also on the other side too, hey, this is becoming a little bit boring. Can we have more things to do? Like, you got to take that feedback in consideration. Well, so, yeah.
This is the perfect segue into the sort of monetization economic design. I'm going to talk about economy design first, because I think that's different from monetization. It's a part, of course. To my mind, economy design is the kind of like the all-encompassing part of it. And then the monetization is a sort of byproduct.
Yeah, absolutely.
But for me, I think what's fascinating is how great players are at being the canary in the coal mine, and how terrible they are at economy design. I don't mean that like, I'm not trying to offend players here, but when you are playing a game, I do this myself, when I'm playing a game, my objectives and the outcomes I want are not necessarily conducive to making a good playing experience. So how do you not give a player that power up, that God armor power up that they keep saying they want, and give them something that's not as good as that, but actually is designed to make it easier for them to feel like that payoff for that effort was valuable? I
think it all depends sort of on the experience that you want them to have. This either spending experience or even playing experience. Throughout this experience, there's a lot of locks that require a lot of keys. And I mean, I'm being like very abstract here, or like very simplistic. And you want to ensure that balancing the effort and time to acquire the keys to those locks is something that is worth it. So, again, I praise our economy design team because they're so smart, because they want to ensure that if you give too much, you will players obviously understand that, you know, if they get something very powerful, they see it as a benefit. But very often there is a case where giving too much power also make things boring. And it happened to me in different games. It happened to me in Marvel Contest of Champions, and it happened to a lot of players. Balancing the challenge with it all comes down to balancing the challenge for the reward. Is this item worth 100 wins in this mode, which translates into this many hours, which translates into potentially this many weeks? Like, is it worth it? And if this item moves the power level up, are players still going to be engaged at the same level and make an effort for the next item? So balancing that is very important. And again, economy design is your best friend. You gotta map time. You gotta map the economy for the best and the worst case scenario, and sort of have this potential planning. Like, okay, well, what happens if we actually do give the best item? Is this gonna be good? We're definitely gonna win the community sentiment, but will this kill the game? I'm being way too dramatic, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like,
no, but
you
it's
don't,
the LTV problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's LTV is an impossible calculation to actually work out in fact, because if you've done it right, you're going to increase the length of time the player plays. So
Yes.
you're always moving the goalpost.
Yes.
And to my mind, it's the same kind of conundrum, which is, for me, it's, I like to think of it as a vector. So it's a direction, it's a flow. It's not a goal. It's not a thing in itself. And understanding the power curve and the difficulty curve. And there's an almost irony of it, which is we tend as an industry, I've just beaten the monster. I get the great benefit. I get the big gun.
Yep.
And every time I kill a bigger monster, I get a bigger gun, which means that, especially if it's in a PvP, obviously, Conquest isn't quite that, but in a PvP environment, you've just made it so the gap between the new user and the experienced user has become disproportionately, unbreakably large, which is why I can't play most, first-person shooters. Well, that plus I'm a bit dyspraxic, so never mind. One of the things I learned from first-person shooters, particularly, and again, I bore my audience with this, my favorite mod on Quake 2 was Weapon of Choice. Weapon of Choice is a mod where if you killed someone, you lost the rocket launcher until they killed you. And if you killed them again, you lost the lightning gun. And then you got down to an axe. And so when we were running, back in the early days of dial-up modems, we were running a Quake 2 on Wireplay. The best and most fun games were when you had a whole bunch of newbies playing a whole bunch of veterans, and the veterans were chasing down all the newbies with axes, and the newbies were scrambling, picking up the rocket launchers and blowing away a few.
Yep.
And that was so much fun because it was the reverse. And in fact, I interviewed James Portnow, who worked on COD, and they did a gun game, which was the same principle. And to my mind, this is the dilemma I think an economy designer has, is how do you give somebody less, but it feels like more?
Yeah.
Because if you give them less in terms of the functional benefit, but you then make the difficulty more challenging, it's more, as long as you don't hit the point where it becomes out of their capacity to succeed.
Yeah. I think you brought up a very good point. I think this definitely works in a sort of sphere of like giving sort of less powerful players this sort of like power fantasy mode where you can actually feel what it's like to be at your best. We actually did that a couple of times with our mode called Incursions, where it's basically sort of a dungeon crawler. You just go through dungeons with an increase in difficulty. It's a pretty simple design, but a couple of times what we did, we just added a lot of buffs and the choices of buffs. So basically by, dungeon 3 or 4, you are this powerhouse of a character going through and just putting all of the debuffs, and the big numbers go up, and that felt so satisfying and fun that it's like, well, I'll probably will not experience this in my sort of a regular play, but it gives me a sense of progression and it is a lot of fun. And like something like this is what endgame players sometimes experience all the time. And it's, or you can go the other way. You make a mode where the top players just lose all of their benefits, and they now have to play with the vanilla characters.
The Infinity Snap has damaged all of your characters.
Exactly.
Now you have to play with the anyone who's under level 10 or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Those sorts of things. So, I mean, there's so many areas that we could explore in this. So we could talk about things like, what happens with the first time user experience, what happens with what I call the second time user experience, namely like the routine player. And I also like talking about the lapsed time user experience, people who are coming back 3 months, 6 months, 10 years later sometimes, who think they know how to play, but they can't remember, and those sort of things. But instead of that, because I don't want to take all of your time, but I think, this move from the economy to the monetization. So we've already talked about the need for the balance and the excitement and the anticipation, the value of playing, and the feeling of satisfaction, the power fantasy, against the kind of ability to complete something and still feeling challenged. So how does that then translate into, having thought about all these events and so forth, how does that translate into what you're offering the player and how you make them want to spend their hard-earned cash or use ads or whatever else it might be?
Yeah. It also comes down to economy design as well, because what we do is, when planning the economy, we do have a budget allocated to what you can earn for free and what you can purchase. There's a ratio. We try to keep it, to keep the ratio. And then we basically structure our offers based on that roadmap. Like we have the power structure that we plan for years, and we want to ensure that player has an opportunity to earn things for free. But if they choose to, save time or get ahead a little bit faster without making it pay to win, or try to minimize that aspect as much as possible, there is an opportunity for that. We have a set of items that we want to sell. Again, planning the budget for all types of players, from the beginners to the end game, and then we sort of we plan offers around that. We try not to lean too much on sort of like exclusivity in the monetization, because we found that, and I mean, our game is like, we don't actually have a traditional cosmetic model. Like we don't have skins. We don't have sort of custom animations or, like a splash screen of like
There's not a holograph version of the card. And it's not even a card.
This is something that we actually did implement very recently. Yeah, we've implemented this. Like sort of a holographic, exactly like the picture of the character does not affect any power, and this is probably the first run at the cosmetics, with the except like we do have profile pictures and we do have like little emotes, but this is nothing, comparing to the traditional cosmetic model. So most of our monetization is focused around champions that, again, you can acquire through free means, and their power level. So when it comes to exclusivity, I'm trying to think of any sort of like exclusive champions for money. We did have Deadpool for a little bit, but now it's there's you can expand your roster and you can power level them. So we structure our offers around that. Economy design is your best friend.
Because they're very flexible vectors that I would actually say more substantial than just a cosmetic.
Of course. Again, with a game like this, when you have over 300, 350, it's definitely there. We try to ensure that every character that you have is useful. And at this point, it is becoming a lot more difficult. But yes, it's the utility of it is something that we try to improve. And as a result, acquiring those champions through either free or paid means becomes more meaningful and more rewarding.
No, absolutely, and I think the tying those things into seasonality where you do can be really powerful. But I think to your point, if you go too far, there's an expectation of what Spider-Man can do.
Yeah, exactly.
And in some ways, what I think a lot of games can learn from what you guys have done, because you've managed to pull off the ability to create utility as a vector in the things that you spend money on. And a lot of game teams get shy away from putting any gameplay into the process. But you don't have to shy away from it, because there's an expectation of what the character can do. You can balance it with pros and cons in terms of their performance and technique kind of elements or power-up elements type things. I think in some ways there's a lot in the model that you guys have taken in terms of approaching this that I think almost every game could learn from, because I think this is the way that you make a relatively relatively constrained gameplay mode. It's not like you have like long arcs of progression that you can bring in, and yet you've still managed to make that work. How? Because you've got that ability to enhance the character, to improve things, to have these tracks, and that scales with the number of characters you've got.
Yes.
I think that's
definitely.
magic.
It is. In its way, it's also becoming a challenge for players who, who get into the game. Again, it's not the same game that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Right now, if you do fresh install, the first time experience, you are presented with so many characters that are just in the game. And at some point, it may become overwhelming. Why do I need all 350 to collect them and to rank them up and to make them in order to catch up? Absolutely not. But the feeling can still be there, and I don't want to call it a curse of long-term live service games, but it definitely does become a challenge because, and structuring your first time experience in order to sort of gauge how much of the real game there is always a good thing, because you don't want to overwhelm the players. You don't want to make them churn and set them on a path that, okay, you need this set, but if you would like to have more, there are other means to acquire and expand your roster, and slowly habituating them into, hey, there's this vast universe and all of the things that you can do, slowly bringing them up.
And I think that's great. And obviously, we could carry on talking about this for hours, but one thing I do want to have a chance to talk about, because you gave a great talk about direct-to-consumer when at the Live Service Summit in Austin a few weeks ago at the time of recording. I'd love to know how the avenue of using website-based, off-store-based services has changed the way that you look at the engagement with the audience and the way that you monetize the game.
I think it definitely strengthened our relationship with our players, because for a couple of things. First of all, it's a pretty common practice to ensure that you provide better value on the web store, because ultimately players have to go outside of the game, they have to make an account, put a credit card, or this is an extra effort that needs to be reported. So because we provided extra value, I think it did sort of strengthen the relationship with players. It is also another outlet to get some free stuff. It is the outlet. I mean, the actual spending experience is a lot faster because you buy this on the web. So it helped with to establish a relationship with our spenders and other players, like even more. We listen to their feedback, how their spending experience on the web store happens. We've taken some of the direct feedback and we implemented to the web store. That's how the shopping cart feature came to be, because some players messaged us and said, hey, buying one at a time is really a drag. Like, I wish we had a better way to just, make all these purchases at once. And we took this directly to our production, and hey, we're building a shopping cart. So that definitely helped. In terms of the design and sort of like a roadmap of, monetization roadmap, this is slowly becoming the primary way of monetizing your game. So we're paying a lot more attention to how direct-to-consumer platforms exist in the ecosystem and who goes there, how it is being presented. Again, providing the best spending experience. So, and I think it helped a lot, and I think also people, some things that other companies or other monetization experts, I don't see them mentioning as much, is that players do understand the fact that you as a company is benefiting from this. Like, they're very smart, and they understand that, hey, Kabam is benefiting from having this web store, and then they're passing this benefit to us. So we want them to succeed, so they can provide the best game for us. This is a place. This is a great experience. We appreciate the benefit. Sometimes not always, but in general, like, they do understand that this is a win-win for both players and the developer. And having that relationship, having that understanding, I think is great.
Yeah, that ability to get closer to the player, I think, is really powerful. And I think there's a whole bunch of things we've yet to find out. And we've got the EU's Digital Fairness Act that's being discussed, some of which I'm not a fan of. If they follow through with some of the stuff, I think there's some real risks that they're going to damage game design fundamentally, irrelevant of monetization. Hopefully that will avert that. But also we've got the mobile markets. What's it called? Anyway, the arguments between the EU, Apple, Google, etc. Still, I don't think are quite resolved. I'm not a particular fan of some of the current proposals being made, which seems to me like missing the point. Which is, if I go to a store, I should be able to use their store. I get the signposting worry, but
I mean, I do. In a sense, in a sense, I do understand first-party platforms' point. Not to, completely defend them, but they did build an infrastructure. I mean, they did build an infrastructure that allowed thousands, if not millions, of games to exist in a device in your pocket. So but it is effectively
a monopoly as well. You could argue.
It absolutely is. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I understand where they're coming from, and I don't know how this is going to get resolved. So we're going to be playing it by ear.
And my point here is not to make any kind of point any of those teams out. There are lots of different reasons why those particular circumstances are where they are. And I say this as somebody who, back in the mobile Java era, I took 60% revenue share. So 60% to my team. Now, I have reasons why that was the right thing at the time and blah, blah, blah. And we were changing it over time. So I think this is an evolution process anyway.
Yes, it is.
But the point is that we are in a situation where the market has become quite challenging, particularly the last few years. User acquisition has become extremely challenging. Discovery has become increasingly challenging. And the net benefit of being on the platform, a specific platform, as opposed to another platform, hasn't become as clear as it once was. And I think that means we're in a ripe position for a conversation, a shaking up of the market. But that to me makes it really fascinating to be in your situation where you're sitting there trying to work out, what's the best thing for my players? How do I make sure I've got a commercial game in this incredibly challenging market environment? And you've got to satisfy lots of different masters, essentially. What is that? How do you deal with that complexity?
It is challenging to, like, I gotta admit, it does become challenging sometimes. Try not to think of direct to consumer as sort of, I think that, as you mentioned, if you do have good relationship with your players within the game, and if you do have a good sort of a spending path and the experience of spending, because, like, for example, like when I make an offer, my job is to ensure that if you buy this offer, you are happy. Because if you buy this offer and you're not happy, I didn't do my job well. If you didn't buy an offer, that's a different thing. But if you bought it and if you're not happy, this is wrong. I need to do better. So my job is to ensure that, yes, when you spend your money, it is worth it and it provides the benefits and it makes you happy. So if you do establish this relationship with players in your game, the matter of where they're spending money is sort of a secondary thing. And I want to ensure that, and again, I have the benefit of working on a game that's existed for over 10 years. We've established this trust. We worked a lot with trial and error. But for somebody who's just starting out or just, in their first or second year, you do need to ensure that your in-game spending experience, your core loop, your economy, like your toy, this is what you put out. That is the more important thing than the direct to consumer platform. Because if players are not happy spending in your game on mobile, I think it will be very challenging to make them happy spending on a
100%
D2C platform. So to me, the spending experience comes first. The platforms, I mean, there are always targets, there are always desires to bring more players, but you need to ensure that players that choose to spend in your game are happy and they stay in the game. That comes first. Everything else, of course, there's challenges of bringing players to to a different platform. And there are ways to overcome those challenges, but you have to ensure that, where you spend money first is better. So,
well, I think this brings us full circle, because if you think about it, where we started out, we were talking about this kind of an initial challenge, initial change when you moved into the live space, where it became less about the product and more about the community. And essentially for me, the whole movement into the D2C is, here is another tool for us to deeper connect our relationship with the community.
Exactly.
And I think, to your point, yes, there are challenging regulations. Yes, there are conversations going about revenue share here, there, or everywhere. But our job is to navigate the best experience for the player.
Exactly.
And if we don't get that right, how are we going to get any of this right?
That's a very well put. Like, the short-term gain is not worth the long-term failure, and you need to ensure that the long-term success is there. It'll come.
It's all about the long game.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds obvious in hindsight. You're talking about games that last over a decade, but it is all about the long term. And I think this is one of the lessons I gained from observing friends of mine who work in a hyper casual space. As good as that was, and there's some incredible stuff that we learned from that model, what really matters is people staying playing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. As much as I love, what I do in monetization, retention comes first.
Yeah. But I don't think they're separate. I think, engagement gives us retention.
Exactly. Yes.
Retention gives us monetization. But if we don't have things that people want to buy,
exactly,
are they going to stay?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what it comes down to. Yeah.
What it comes down to.
Yeah.
Ivan, thank you so much for that. It's been a great conversation. Thank you. Really enjoyed that. If people want to find out more about yourself, or, how, is there a way that they can get in touch with you?
LinkedIn, Ivan Donik. I think I'm the only one like that there. So that's the best way to reach me. Thank you so much, Oscar. This was wonderful. Had a really good time.
Thanks so much. And again, hopefully, this has been your LiveOps Analyst. We've been exploring all the possibilities, and it's great having it from the perspective of a game with the legacy and the brand value that, Conquest of Champions brings, because it shows that even when you compare the small indie games, the challenges that indie games have with the medium-sized games, with the mobile, with the MMOs, all of these different games have very similar LiveOps challenges, which is about retaining and engaging an audience because they love the game first.
Exactly.
And if we get that wrong, we miss everything else that comes from that. But that also means, as we've said before, we have to think about the best way to give them the access to the things that they want. And if we get that right, they want to spend money with us. Monetization should be a joy.
Exactly.
It shouldn't be a transaction.
That's true. Yeah.
Alone.
It's very well put.
Ivan, thank you so much. And we'll be back next time when we're talking more about monetization, game design, and all the joy of making, running, and experiencing live operated games. Thank you very much.